Austin, it is I, Omni Brennan, and we are. Yeah, this is. I'm sorry, y'all. Vacation really did a number on me. I am not mentally.
You were off here a little bit too long.
A little too long, and now I'm just like my brain's just totally rewired.
You lost the rhythm.
Omni Brennan IB, and I'm here with.
I'm Wyatt. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Wyatt, the nerd incarnate. The essence of nerdism. Welcome, Wyatt. Always a pleasure to have you fill in when my other co-hosts just ditch me. Yeah, so as always, this is the weekly Thursday show where we kind of took a weird hiatus because holidays be crazy and scheduling and weird and hijinks ensue, but we're back now. We're going to try and get back on that regular schedule where we bring you some of our favorite blasts from the past, prior graphic novels, recommend them to you, and implore you to read them because y'all don't read enough comics. You just don't. We do.
What you got for us today, Brennan?
I've got a grand epic from one of the great epic makers of this generation, Jonathan Hickman's Shield. I'm
the Hickman.
The Hickman himself, man of Hicks. He's yeah. I'm constantly, I mean, with so many of the things I bring up, I bring up Hickman a lot, because he's like, and I always say he's one of those writers who is always good about writing. He has an internal continuity. Whenever he writes, he writes a bunch of different series for Marvel over time, and even though they're separated by title, by character, by space and time, somehow they're always sort of connected to the other things he's written. So he's sort of built his own through line.
He's very fantastic at making stories that work as both standalones and yet as part of a larger saga.
Yeah, so if you read his other stuff, you kind of get little kernels of through line that kind of pay off in interesting ways. Shield is one of his earlier Marvel works that kind of do this, and it's really awesome. It's sort of this reimagining of the history of Shield. It kind of takes what is this sort of global spy organization and sort of posits, gives it the not so humble beginnings of an ancient society where all the world's great thinkers, its strongest fighters, its mathematicians, its scientists, sort of go to create the world, to sort of drive humanity into the future. It's always, and it plays interestingly fast and loose with the concept of a superhero as well, because it takes place in the Marvel universe where we think of superheroes like Iron Man and Captain America and the Fantastic Four.
The now modern Kate.
Yeah, and it sort of posits like, well, those guys are just the modern incarnation of the guys that we had throughout history. So Galileo, Isaac Newton, others. I mean, gosh, just like everyone's in here. Galileo,
it's really
Isaac
one of those
Newton,
great stories that takes historical figures and kind of reworks and adds to their history about what if this was going on behind the scenes.
Leonardo da Vinci, that's the value.
This is what the history books left out.
Yeah, it posits that these people, the great thinkers of civilizations past, of our history, were the first people to encounter Galactus. They were the first ones to encounter the Celestials. They were the first ones to introduce sciences that dealt with cosmic entities and things like that, and create sort of this world organization of S.H.I.E.L.D. With a bit more of a mystic flourish than simply a spy organization. And it's also sort of about this kid who kind of gets caught up in that. He gets brought to their secret underground city and is now made a cog in sort of their system. And he realizes that despite it being, the founding era, the great past with the world's greatest thinkers, that things like pettiness and greed are still very much alive and well, and that great schisms can divide great minds.
Sadly, we are still human.
We are still human, regardless of how much we try and reach for the stars. We're still human. This is fantastic. It reminded me a lot of one of my other favorite books, Planetary, in that it takes these sort of old tropes, old concepts about comics and superheroes and sci-fi, and puts an interesting modern spin on them and sort of gives them new weight in the way that he interprets it. It's pretty vague, but he plays with a lot of big ideas in here. He wrote the first arc that came out years ago. I forget exactly what year that was, like mid-2000s, I want to say. Maybe
I want to say 04, 05.
04, 05.
It was either just before or at the same time with his Fantastic Four run.
So yeah, they did the first 6 issues, and then they did like 2 more issues that were supposed to round out a second volume, although nothing else came after that for like a handful of years. Like years later, then cut to just post Secret Wars. Hickman writes about 3 years worth of awesome Avengers titles that climax with Secret Wars, one of the most wonderful sort of payoff crossover books in a long time. And after that, eventually he went back with was it Dustin Weaver? Or just, Dustin Weaver, and finally completed the second volume, which was called The Human Machine. To finally complete his 2-volume run. It's really, really good. I just on a whim, I read that first volume and just got hooked. I need to go. I actually need to go through and finish the final chapter. I'm trying to keep up with so much. I read omnibuses, guys, so much. Just be thankful I'm not talking about Annihilation again on this thing. Because I was so tempted to bring out Annihilation. It's like there's so much more to talk about. But anyways, yeah, Hickman.
We wind up having reruns every time Annihilation comes out.
Right. It's like every new printing. Guys, Annihilation's out again. Here's why again you need to come buy it. But yeah, because that one's also a big interconnected space epic. But yeah, Jonathan Hickman, Dustin Weaver's Shield series. It's in 2 volumes. They have yet to come out with a nice deluxe hardback for these. I'm really hoping they do so. I'll buy that in a heartbeat. But yeah, come check it out if you want something that's very kind of smart, intricate. If you were one of the people who got reintroduced to the X-Men recently with House of X and Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman, and you kind of know how he likes to build worlds and kind of build. He retcons things in such an interesting way that it doesn't feel cheap. It's a retcon done right, where it actually makes you
like a retcon. It's more of an addition rather than.
It's an addition. It makes you sort of reflect and go, on things past and go like, well, that's interesting. It gives you new perspective. So yeah, definitely come check that out. What you got, Wyatt?
Well, for today, I have a blast from the far past in the 1940s. A little newspaper strip called Pogo by Walt Kelly.
Good times.
Yeah, the 40s. And I chose this one just because it's a little. One thing that makes our store very unique from a lot of other comic book stores is we also have books of newspaper comics. So we have all sorts of newspaper strips, the original Uncle Scrooges. Buck Rogers, all sorts of
Phantom, Peanuts, Dennis the Menace, that's sort of great. Those great classic newspaper strips. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they reprint those. They give them really nice.
They give them really nice. This is the volume 1 of the Pogo series. So this is when the series first started. Now, if you've never read Pogo, it's a very adorable little comic strip about a young possum named Pogo and the various swamp creatures that live in the Okefenokee Swamp. And one really cool thing throughout the book is that everybody speaks in a little bit of a Cajun dialect.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a really quality reprint of all the various newspaper strips. And they even have some of the Sundays in here.
Oh, wow.
And they maintain, this is one really cool thing I like about Pogo, specifically these books, is they maintain that kind of offset, CMYK printing style, so that it hasn't been retouched, it hasn't been recolored. It's just like a quality scan that keeps that original I think colors intact.
Yeah, I think people are kind of waking up to the idea that they're not just reading a story recaptures that experience. There's so much more. There's a lot of subtlety that goes into recreating the experience of reading an old story, and so I've seen it when DC would reprint some of their older books, and they do it on the newer, glossier paper with this sort of glossier finish.
And then nothing against the colorists, but a lot of those older pages were meant to be colored a certain way.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't quite
different.
match whenever you color it with the modern color sensibilities.
So and something like this to kind of preserve that original style really kind of helps preserve the just what the story was originally intended to be. So it's great.
And it's all sorts of fun little adventures of just the various swamp creatures, fighting hunters and getting boat tours and all sorts of stuff, and just dealing with nature and a little bit of tourism. And one of the great things too about this, a little fun fact for comics, is that the creator of Bone, Jeff Smith, he credits this series, Pogo, and the creator Walt Kelly being a huge inspiration to not just Bone, but his work overall.
Wow, okay.
And so that's
so great.
Yeah. It's a great series on its own, one of the classic newspaper strips, right up there with Calvin and Hobbes and Far Side, like in terms of, like the greats.
Yeah, just sort of something that, kind of pushed, influenced the next generation of cartoonists and animators that would again go on to, push us into the day. It's always kind of nice to go back and re-explore those roots, and something like this, makes that extra possible. Right on, right on.
Yeah. And then, like I mentioned, you can find us in our special newspaper section. Again, that's one of the things that makes our store unique, is that we have an entire section dedicated to newspaper comics that have been reprinted and collected in nice editions like this.
Yeah, and just like our regular graphic novels, these newspaper edition reprints and hardbacks all get the 10% off all day, every day as well. Although this week I'm going to go ahead and slap that extra 5%, 15% discount on the first volume of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Jonathan Hickman and Dustin Weaver. That's going to take this, $19.99 cover price, 15% off. Hard to beat that this week only. And yeah, come check out Pogo if you've got, if you want to just relive some of the glory days of art, newspaper artistry, cartoonists, stuff like that.
Or if you're a young cartoonist who wants to get into the industry, or maybe taste a little bit of everything else. There's a lot to comics. It's not just superheroes. There's all sorts of newspaper comics, graphic novels, and then Pogo is a fantastic one to choose from.
If you got kids or anything, if you got young readers that you're looking to introduce into comics, like stuff like this is a great way to kind of get the ball rolling and sort of introduce them to really great, fun stories that are good for the whole family.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's that has been us today. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll have Ghost Host Jesse and Defquan 1 back next week. They're both busy, just as sick. So send Justice and love in the comments if you want. No pressure. It's not necessary. She probably won't read them. And that has been Throwback Thursday this week. Thanks again, Wyatt, for joining. Hope to see you more in the webisodes that we do. And we'll see y'all next week. By the way, we just had a signing yesterday with Donnie Cates for Thor #1. So much fun. Check out our Facebook page for pictures from that. Donnie was a lot of fun. It's always fun having him around. And we still have a few Thor #1 signed copies left in stock. Cover price, no upcharge, nothing like that. So if you're interested in getting a signed copy of Thor #1 by Donnie Cates, come in and get it while supplies last. We only got a few. Yeah, they're already going too. That stack is about half as full as it was this morning.
So you got to be quick about it.
Yeah, come on down. We'll see y'all then. Thanks a lot, y'all.
Take care, folks.
Quick, I gotta go turn off. Entertain the people, Wyatt.
Let's see if he can make it. Let's see. He's running about. And okay, can he push the right button?
We'll see. We'll see.
Not that button.
Dang it.
Not that button.
Nope.